Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great.
Great. Thank you for joining us. I was just going through sort of like just checking up on everybody in these times, just to make sure that we're all mentally in a good space and if anybody's all right. So I was just asking everybody how they're doing at the moment.
Doing great.
Great.
Just a few programs obviously have been disturbed.
Oh yeah.
I
can imagine. Well, we've also had to cancel a number of our physical meetups and stuff. Yeah, and this being one of them. But thank God for technology, we're now able to at least get together over here.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So yes, I was. Thank you for making time to meet with us and to take time to give us a presentation on a talk on what it is you do at the Securities Exchange Commission. Am I right? Is that Securities?
Yes, Securities and Exchange Commission, yes.
Yeah, Securities and, sorry, it's the and that I keep forgetting. So it's the Securities and Exchange Commission, and giving us an oversight into what you do and where FinTechs could, where FinTechs could approach you and have conversations with you. I hope that these calls will help us not only view you as a watchdog, but also get to develop a relationship with you, knowing that whenever we have queries, we can walk up to you and talk about what we can do in the market and help customers and to help grow the market.
Sure.
And where you can, and that that you as a regulator are keen to help us to develop and to get the market to expand or to grow bigger.
Precisely.
Yeah. So I've told everybody that you've got an hour in which you, if you want to share, which you could share your presentation. People are free to ask questions after that. There'll be an extra 30 minutes if people want to ask questions. I mean, depending on where you decide to stop. And
sure.
And also, this session is being recorded for anyone who misses. Also, if your internet fails during the session, for anybody, we'd just like to let you know that we are recording the session, and we will be able to share the recording with you just in case you drop out. All right, then. So I think we'll hand it over to you, Mubanga.
Okay. All right. So I prepared a presentation. I don't know if I could share my screen.
Yes.
I'm seeing here there's provision for me to present now.
There is, yes. So if you click on present now, it will ask you which screen you want to share, and then with that, you'll be able to choose your presentation.
All right. Okay, are you able to see?
Not
Hello?
yet.
Okay. Perhaps I could just start going through it.
Mubanga,
I've gone to share entire screen.
Okay.
And that is.
Then click on your presentation. If you're sharing your entire screen, then click on your presentation just like you would in PowerPoint. Then once you start seeing your presentation, it should hopefully show up on our screen.
Are you there?
Yeah, just go straight to your presentation, and if you, as you concentrate on your presentation, to show. Yeah, thank you, and then go into presentation mode, like you would in a normal presentation.
All right. Just a minute.
I think minimize this screen. Yes. Okay, great. We're there. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Does that help? All right, great. So basically, I will just be giving an introduction to who we are as the Securities and Exchange Commission, and obviously following on what our mandate is, and some of the regulatory functions that we undertake as a commission. So just to give a background of who we are, I hope everyone is able to hear me. Am I audible enough?
Yes, we can hear you.
So please, as I go on, you may ask questions if you like at any point of the presentation. So the Securities and Exchange Commission, in essence, was established through an Act of Parliament, Chapter 354 of 1993, which was recently repealed. Not so recent anymore, but it was repealed by the Securities Act number 41 of 2016. And the SEC is an apex regulator within the financial sector of Zambia. So just to give an overview of who are the capital market players in Zambia, that screen there. So being an apex regulator, you may want to compare us to our core regulators like the Bank of Zambia and the Pensions and Insurance Authority. Obviously, the Bank of Zambia regulates the banking sector, and it looks also at the non-bank financial institutions, some of which may be players like the microfinance institutions, the bureaus, etc. And on the other hand, the Pensions and Insurance Authority looks at the pensions and insurance companies. So the Securities and Exchange Commission, in essence, regulates the capital market space in Zambia. So what's our vision as a commission? To be a dynamic regulator that protects investors and promotes capital markets development. Our mission is to safeguard interests of investors and promote the growth of capital markets. Our mandate, the overriding mandate for us is investor protection, which means that we should create and promote conditions that are aimed at ensuring an orderly growth, integrity, and development of the capital markets in Zambia. How do we do this? We do this mainly through market development activities and market supervision. I think our meeting today will try and tackle both sides, looking at the supervision of FinTechs, for example, and how can the Commission come in to facilitate that market development for FinTechs promotion. So that's the structure of the SEC. We have our head there at the top, Chief Executive Officer. The Commission has 3 directorates, Enforcement and Legal Services, Market Supervision and Development, where I come from. I'm managing the financial inclusion portfolio there. And then we have a directorate for finance and obviously support functions, that administrative and ICT. What is our role? Like I mentioned earlier, we regulate the capital markets in Zambia, and then obviously to supervise and develop the capital markets in accordance with the new act, which is the Securities Act number 41 of 2016. What is the key provision in the Securities Act which facilitates or allows for such engagements with the broader stakeholders in the sector? To encourage the development of securities and securities exchanges and the increased use of such exchanges. So I thought I should speak a bit to understanding capital markets. Is everyone online?
We're still with you, yes.
Okay, great. It's too quiet. I was beginning to think no one is listening in. So what are capital markets? Like the word market entails, ideally, a marketplace is, I think, where goods or services must be exchanged. So when we speak capital markets, we're looking at the exchange of capital in the financial sector. Capital markets, in essence, provide a platform to raise long-term finance, and also gives an opportunity to both individual investors and institutional investors to participate in that market. So it's just part of the broader financial sector, complementary to other subsectors like the banking sector, the pensions and insurance sector. Capital markets also play a critical role because it's a platform that can be used to mobilize scarce resources, to mobilize savings, which can be channeled to productive sectors such as energy, agriculture, manufacturing. Even FinTech now can use this platform to raise access to finance. I think our current partnership with UNCDF and also partly with BongoHive is to try and facilitate the growth of SMEs and to try and provide solutions on how such challenges can be addressed. Access to finance has been one of the greatest challenges for SMEs that to a large extent inhibits their formation, the way they operate efficiently. So capital markets, in essence, also could potentially provide for that kind of access to finance, long-term finance and affordable finance. All right, so just to touch on what I just highlighted, you can see the sort of securities that are involved in the capital markets. We have both debt and equity securities or instruments, if you like. On the debt side, just to give this into perspective, you would see, for example, an upcoming fintech that has proven to be successful, but hasn't need or it requires more access to finance. So they may issue a debt instrument to raise more capital. I'm sure you've heard of corporate bonds or government bonds. So a fintech would then issue, through the Securities and Exchange Commission, obviously, issue a corporate bond, inviting any potential investors, either institutional or individual investors, to be part of that corporate bond, thereby lending to the fintech for a specific period of time. And the agreement would be that the fintech, once it meets its financial goals, for instance, is now able to pay back with interest at a particular given time. The other route would be the use of equity instruments, which will now be opening up for ownership dilution, inviting the general public to be part owners of the fintech. This has its pros. In essence, this would entail that the fintech shares both its gains and it also shares its losses. So in the event that the fintech does not necessarily meet its good financial standing, you then share that burden with your investors. On the other hand, your investors are given confidence when you are able to remit dividends per se at the end of the year end. Okay, so that's just basically highlighting some of the other things that the capital markets contribute towards in the economy. Now, to drill down to the functions of the SEC, what do? We promote high standards of investor protection, integrity of the industry. We also promote self-regulation of industries. In the capital markets, we have what we refer to as SROs, self-regulatory organizations. One such organization is the exchange, where they formulate their own rules, and also they are able to follow up on their constituents as to whether or not they are complying with the provided for rules and regulations. And then also associations are able to apply for SRO status, like the Capital Markets Association of Zambia, if you've heard of it, can apply for that status. Then we also promote for orderly growth and development of the industry, operation of free, orderly, and informed market. So that's got to do with issues of, for instance, disclosure of information, which is very key because it gives confidence to the general public. Once they are aware of the capabilities through the information that you disclose, only then can they feel confident and comfortable to invest in any business willing to embark in the securities business. And then the Securities and Exchange Commission also formulates rules, regulations, directives, and circulars to help market players effect their business. So maybe to put this into perspective, we would be looking at developing rules for fintechs to operate within our space. Currently, there are no rules in capital markets specific to fintechs. But what has been the trend is that we've had some applications come in, fintech applications. So based on those applications, the Commission then requests for an example of a presentation to be made to us. And then there is consideration for conditional approvals to be made for such businesses. One such business maybe you may be aware of is Hobbiton, which has a product Patumba. So I think they were given a general license, a dealer's license, which was conditional on the premise that they are able to meet other overlying legislations or frameworks of a dealer's representative. Then to license and supervise industry players, industry activities such as exchange and settlement, approve players' constitutions, bylaws, etc. Then safeguarded interests of investors is closely related to our mandate. What's another regulatory function that is done? We inspect capital market operators. This can be either on-site or off-site inspections, where we review returns on site. This could be annual returns, quarterly returns, and other financials also that can be submitted to us via mobile platforms or electronic platforms, are then validated physically, and which is also done periodically. What do? We also ensure compliance and reform. Enforcement regulation is done through actions such as censures, fines. This, for example, is for institutions that are not adhering to the frameworks or the regulations that the Commission has effected. Aside the mundane supervisory or regulatory functions, we also cooperate with development partners, other key stakeholders who may want to participate in the capital markets or contribute to the growth of the capital markets in Zambia. One such is institutions, maybe like you may be aware of institutions like Financial Sector Deepening Zambia, whose mandate is financial inclusion and is closely related to or aligned to objectives of the Commission. What are some of the overarching policy agendas and objectives for capital market development? So I mentioned that I'm currently the liaison for financial inclusion at the Commission. We have, as a country, the National Financial Inclusion Strategy. This strategy was launched in November 2017. And related to what I said earlier, growth usually is related to having an inclusive financial sector. So in line with that, the vision for the strategy is to have universal access and usage of a broad range of quality and affordable financial products and services. So I think here fintechs are able to play a very significant role because fintechs can facilitate for access to capital markets. You can imagine we have about 7 brokers in Zambia. Most of them are based here in Lusaka. So how does one individual, say maybe in Kashikishi, have access to these capital markets products? Fintechs become essential to being a bridge and providing that solution. And then also the usage, that's talking to capability, which the fintechs facilitate for. Mobile banking right now is
Hi, Mubanga. I think something's happened to his connectivity. Let's give him a second to see if he can come back in.
Is a very in as much as it may be convenient to use fintechs, do they really do they really provide for that affordability, and do they cater for the lower segments of society? Because in essence, I think fintechs should be used to promote the uptake of financial products and services by the lower segments of society. So what's the overall objective of the NFIS? Is to achieve a financial inclusion rate of 80%, thereby enabling Zambians to use appropriate savings, credit, payment, insurance, and investment services to manage risks, plan for the future, and achieve their goals. And firms will be able to access affordable financing to facilitate innovation and firm growth and create employment. You will see that I highlighted savings, credit, and investment in green because that's directly related to the capital markets. Earlier, I mentioned the mobilization of savings, and also it's a form of credit because players can come onto the capital markets to access that long-term and affordable finance, which is essentially a credit because there's an obligation to pay back to the investors. And investment, these are investments which if an individual or an institution buys into the fintech, essentially that becomes an investment to them. Okay, so just also to speak to our strategic plan, it sets a new direction and key priorities to the mandate of SEC. There we have investor protection excellence, market development excellence. Related to this, under investor protection excellence, which is aimed at increasing financial inclusion and access to capital markets products, it would be one strategic action for us is to develop a plan to promote the use of digital platforms. And aside that, to develop awareness and capability programs, which you could say to a large extent is a session such as this that we are having today. We've already considered putting this action in place. Not too long ago, we signed an MOU with the United Nations Capital Development Fund to see how we can help promote the use of digital platforms, or rather grow the digital economy of Zambia vis-a-vis the capital markets. In there, we have different target groups, which are the SME section, and also the marginalized sections of society, such as the youth and the women of this country. Market development excellence, this is aimed at deepening and diversifying investment options in capital markets. Now, also this speaks to alternative funding options or investment options. Right now we have what's becoming very popular or has been the trend in other developed countries or middle income countries that have progressed well in their financial sectors, who are riding a lot on crowdfunding platforms, for instance. So that's one strategic area where the SEC is looking at ways or exploring ways in which we can try and facilitate for the growth of that space as well. I thought I should also share a checklist for new applicants. This is specific to companies, which would also entail that FinTechs wishing to operate in the capital markets would have to be, as a prerequisite, registered as companies. So it just speaks to the application process, company details, the financial information, auditor's confirmation, capital markets association. I think you have to be a member of the association, and other details such as the director's details. I will at this point invite any questions.
Thank you, Mubanga. I do have a couple of questions that came through during the conversation, during your presentation.
All right.
I'll read some of those to you, and if anybody has any other questions, please put them in the chat so that you don't forget your question, or we can share it with Mubanga. So one question from Esther was, what is the minimum amount for a corporate bond?
For a corporate bond, I think currently it stands at, if I'm not mistaken, 2 million kwacha.
Is that the minimum amount that a company would be looking to raise if they set up for a corporate bond?
That ideally would be a registration.
Oh, registration. All right, great.
Yes.
Is that?
However, I may not have the full detail. We have our market transactions department. So for those where I'm not so sure, I could take down the questions and revert to you accordingly with the right information.
Great. Was that
I think
the question?
it also depends on the amount of money you would like to raise via the corporate bond.
That's good to know. That's very, very.
I think there's a percentage.
All right. Kasubali Mwamba would like to know, what guarantee would a corporate bond issuer, a fintech, have to provide for the corporate bond issuance, and what would be the likely discount on the bond?
Repeat that, sorry.
What guarantee would a corporate bond issuer, for example, a fintech, have to provide for the corporate bond issuance, and what would be the likely discount on the bond? Did you hear my question?
Yes. I think if you look at the list that I shared, are you able to see this one?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yes.
I think as a prerequisite, this checklist is what would actually entail as to whether or not you qualify to participating in the capital markets.
All right. So I think so what you're saying is that in fulfilling the requirements of this is guided by this application list, it would then give a company a certainty as to whether or not they're in the position to.
Precisely.
All right, great. That's great to know. I hope that's answered your question, Kaswa. Please update if you need any further information. Sam Musariri would like to know, is there a regulator-friendly sandbox through which fintechs can engage the SEC without needing to meet the high fees and requirements?
Yes, so we are currently working on a sandbox regulatory framework. We're in the process of developing one. Hopefully that could be done this year. But like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't stop us from licensing a fintech, because what we would be doing we don't have the legislations that allow for such businesses to operate in currently. So what we do, not to inhibit the participation, is to provide for a dealer's license. A dealer's license basically opens you up to embark on any business in the securities sector, but it would have to be conditional, based on the premise that there isn't any specific rules that speak to fintechs.
Oh, cool. I think a follow-up on that.
So we do.
Sorry.
We do allow for that discourse. We invite fintechs to come and make presentations to take us through their business models, etc. And then based on that, we're able to give dealers licenses.
Oh, that's great. That's great to know. Even as we're progressing towards, even as we're progressing towards the sandbox and the regulations that allow for fintechs, then it's great to know that that you already welcome fintech startups to come through and have conversations with you on their plans.
Yeah, definitely. We're very open to that. We've actually seen quite a lot of traction in terms of applications of people that want to open up VCs or embark on crowdfunding platforms.
Great. In that light, Chipulu Lubombe would like to know, do we have any special waivers for new startups on the fees to encourage more Zambian players?
There's been instances where we've given waivers.
Oh, there have been instances when you've given waivers. Okay, so I guess
yes, but it's I think it's been done. It doesn't apply for all.
All right.
For all institutions that would like to embark in securities business, I think it's based on special conditions.
All right.
But there is provision for it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And any indications on what those conditions would be?
I would have to get more detail on that from my colleagues. I'm actually expecting someone from the supervision team to join me, and I think I can throw those questions towards them.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I have seen your question, Kaswa. I just want to keep it the flow right now. So I think Sam is asking again, would the dealer's license, so going back to the dealer's license, would the dealer's license have the same requirements as the standard dealer's license? Because the current dealer's license requirements are still quite inhibitory.
Yes, they are. But like I mentioned earlier, there's a discourse that we allow. And then you could apply for certain waivers, which can be considered by the Commission.
Awesome. All right. Kaspa would like to know, will the bond be traded on the secondary market? And if so, is it active, and what are the levels of liquidity?
Just to speak to maybe some challenges that we face as a market. We have a highly illiquid exchange. This obviously has been spurred by other factors. We have a tendency of institutional investors that invest on the market, and they do not, they buy to hold the stocks. They buy stocks in large amounts and they hold those stocks, for example. So they would essentially have to be traded on the exchange. But currently that's being done via OTC. mainly being done by our OTC, secondary trade.
What is OTC, secondary trade?
That's over-the-counter trading.
All right.
Because we don't have that sort of liquidity at the moment.
Great. Do we have any other questions from the community, from Mubanga? I'm curious, Mubanga, with regards to securities, so not only stocks that are on the Lusaka Stock Exchange or any of the exchanges that we currently have, and also, so we know that currently anybody who's trying to buy stock or trying to buy securities has to go to one of the dealers, which is either a bank or one of the firms that that you can trade through. Have there been any? Why, in your opinion, why don't we have any platforms that allow Zambians to buy securities and stocks online on the market yet?
Okay, so I'm aware that about 2 years ago, the Lusaka Securities Exchange implemented an ATS, which is an automated trading system. Currently, it's only open to brokers, but we've had some conversations and meetings with them to try and explore how individual investors can access that platform. And we were informed that they are working on phase 2 of enabling the ATS to be accessed by individual investors. So in essence, they have the system, but they're undertaking a phased approach to try and open it up to individual investors.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
I hope I answered your question.
Yes, I think my hopes would be that at least it would provide an API that would allow a fintech in the future to register as a broker and then build a platform that allows the nationwide to directly go and trade on the market.
Yeah.
Great. Any more questions? Any questions from the community? All right, Mubanga, it looks like you've helped our community get a good understanding of what's happening at the Securities Exchange Commission. Thank you very much. I know that there are some questions that would be referred to your colleagues. Would be happy to share those via email. Any responses to that?
Yes, please do so. I can give adequate feedback.
Yes. And did you? And we believe that, and it's also good to hear that any of the fintechs that we're working with would be able to set up appointments with the Securities Exchange Commission if they need to get further clarity or to explore any of the options that you have there.
Yeah.
Great. So I think we've come to the end of our presentation. I'd like to thank not only thank Mubanga on behalf of the Securities Exchange Commission, but also thank everyone who's made it for this call. These times have got us into a place where we are exploring new territories on how we get the best information to you as startups, as founders who are building great solutions for the market. And we would like to explore more of this, and we look forward to more engagements. And thank you, Mubanga. Would you kindly thank your colleagues at the Securities Exchange Commission for allowing this to happen?
Thank you, Simunza. I think we should try and promote such discourses even further to allow for that innovation to be fully effected. Yeah,
we're happy to do so. All right, everybody, you have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Is it tomorrow when we communicate with the Zambia Information, Communications and Technology Agency? All right.
Okay. Thank you.